Are we live yet? Hopefully we are. Yes, I think it's just coming up on my screen now. Yes, it is. Hello and good evening and welcome everybody for coming to another Photo Creative Live AMA. That's Ask Me Anything, where you can ask me some questions. So if you don't know what Photo Creative is, it is a group, it is a Facebook group of photographers of all levels and all abilities where I set challenges each month for you to go and practice your camera and creative skills and grow your abilities and your image, image quality overall. It's like having some homework from someone. It's a project for you to do. If you would like to find out more about that and about who I am to be doing that, there are links in the description below this live stream where you can go and do that. So it's great to see all of you lovely people here, so many regulars, and hopefully we've got a few new faces here as well, which would be awesome. Now please guys, hit that like button because it makes a huge difference for me and it helps YouTube know that what we're doing here is appreciated. Now we've moved back to YouTube because, well, we all know it works better than when we were trying to do it on the Facebook, but also I get to tell more new people about my workshops and courses. Now I know some of you are switching off at this point and thinking, oh, he's trying to sell us something. Well, yes, I am, because hey, what's the point of me doing this if I don't? You know, we want to get paid for our skills and abilities and our work, so that is part of what I'm doing. But nonetheless, it is always a pleasure to hang out with you lovely people. Somebody asked me just now how my motorcycles are doing in this cold. Yeah, I haven't been out on them so much at the moment, and yeah, there's not going to be quite so many motorcycle based videos this year. I'll still be doing a few, but I've got some other projects going on, and those motorcycle videos take an enormous amount of work to do. So when the weather gets better, and I think there's a good opportunity, I will do some. But there will still be some photography videos coming along and other stuff. We've had some great questions sent in advance of this stream, and I'll be addressing the questions that you lovely folks sent in advance first, and then coming to any that you want to ask during the stream afterwards. So please, if you think of a question or the response to someone else's question triggers something in you, make a note of it, scribble it down, and then I'll come to it at the end. Why? Because if I'm going between the chat over here and my questions here and the ones that were sent in, I will get lost, and I want to try and help out as many of you guys as possible. So yeah, Lynn, you just posted a question, so re-ask it again please at the end. I will throw it open and just sort of say, right, who's got some other questions that you thought of? I will try and follow the chat, but it's more likely I will miss things doing it that way. Now just before we get into your awesome questions, I just want to have a little word with you about fear and taking photos, and what triggered that was a comment I saw on one of my older videos this morning from someone who was just sort of very kindly just mentioning that, you know, I was photographing on a beach and that there are many little fine particles blowing around in the air which can get inside the camera and the lens. Now the guy was just being helpful and I appreciate that, but it just made me think, how many times do we talk ourselves out of doing something? We think, oh, it might make a great shot if I went down to the beach, but it's a bit windy and there might be dust on my camera or something like that. Well, two things there. One is cameras are far more resilient to dust than you might think, and also if you don't change the lens, it's unlikely you're going to get much in there. And even if you do, it really isn't difficult to clean it, you know. We always worry about the unknown. This is a very, very human thing, which is a crazy thing because we don't know what the unknown is yet. We always have to throw stones into the pool and see what ripples come back. Some of those ripples will be awesome and some of them, well, we just ignore them, don't pick them up, you know. There's a cost attached to everything. You know, questions about everything in life, you know, do I want this shot? What's it going to cost me? Am I happy with that? If I want to do a sunrise shot, I've got to get up early. If I want to do street photography, is someone going to tell me off because I took their photograph? Okay, doing one of my online courses. What's the cost of that? Well, in money terms, it could be somewhere between, what, I don't know, about £55 and a bit over 100, depends which one you choose to do. But that's just a financial cost. The real cost of doing an online course or coming on a workshop is actually your time. I mean, let's face it, £55, well, you're going to spend more than that having dinner for two, certainly in the UK. But with £55 worth of knowledge that I've gained over 30 years, you've got that for the rest of your life. But the cost is going to be your investment of time and effort to go and do the exercises, to put in the work, to practice. Photography is a skill, and like any other skill, you do have to practice it. So there we go. I hope some of you took some of that on board and found that kind of useful, because don't let things stop you. We should maybe sort of talk ourselves out of doing things. I'm actually writing a book at the moment about encouraging bold choices. It's the story of my journey from a no qualifications farm boy and digger driver to exhibiting, teaching and receiving 3 amazing gold awards from the Deputy Ruler of Sharjah in the United Arab Emirates. You know, being on hugging terms with the editor of National Geographic. A couple of pictures I was going to show you actually. You know, there's me sitting in my digger, and there's me with His Highness receiving one of those rewards on the shelf behind me. You know, it's been an extraordinary journey. You know, speaking, this was a huge room of people. 375 people there were in that room, I seem to recall. And there's things we don't expect along the way. Now, none of this was planned. And just like a photo shoot, it's not necessarily planned. We just know we're going to go in a direction and make the best of it. I mean, I nearly fell off my perch the first time at exposure when I saw this picture of me on the wall outside. You know, getting to hang out with arguably the most famous living photographer of all time, Steve McCurry. This year, because I've been a few times now, I got to hang out with His Highness for a while, and he actually asked me to critique his exhibition. So, you know, we never know quite where things are going to go. So don't be afraid to throw some stones into the pool, make that water ripple, and it will really help you get going. So yes, so Irene, you were just saying, good to hear that book is still brewing. Right, this is a different book. This is the personal journey of mine from, you know, farm boy through some very painful choices that were made. This came about because some people I know who run business mentoring programs for some quite high tax bracket people asked me to come and give a talk at one of their events about that journey. And it was them who said something which I hadn't seen. I was just talking about stuff I'd done. But the organisers came over and just said the key takeaway from that is really inspiring, because it is about tough choices, figuring out what you want to go, which direction you want to go, what do you need to do about that, what's the cost going to be. And in some cases there was some very painful costs attached to those choices. So that's what this particular book is about. Now the other book, of course, is about my journey from an extremely overweight person to a, well, at the moment, slightly overweight person, but I've never gone back to that place I was before. And I only got an email from a lovely person this morning asking me about that other book. It's still there, but when the pandemic lockdown arrived, that all went on hold, and I haven't looked at it in probably 2.5 years, but it will come. But right now I'm working on this other project. So anyway, enough about me, and thank you for your kind comments coming in there. Don't forget to like this live stream, please. If you want to contribute to what we're doing with Photo Creative, you can always buy a sticker, as Donald did earlier, by hitting that dollar button, or on our website. There is a link in the description below. So let's have a look at your questions. First one we got here was from Michael Couchman. Is it ever okay to just use auto settings? He said, so let's say you can't get the image just right, but it looks great when you use full auto. Is that okay? He's still new to photography and he's wondering if I ever use auto settings. Completely fine to do whatever you like. There is a caveat though, Michael. So if you're on full auto, the camera is managing everything for you. So it's choosing how much depth of field you get. It's choosing whether or not you have movement blur in a shot. So like maybe you want a blurry background. Well, the camera may choose an aperture that won't give you that. You may think, I want the waves to blur a little bit. Well, the camera won't give you that. Are there times when I use auto? Yes, absolutely. It can be very, very useful. In some situations I use full P mode, actually, P for program or professional. But once you know what's going on inside the camera, when you know what the settings do creatively as well as technically, you can then use those auto settings, you can fool them into doing things. So for example, let's say someone's in front of a really bright window. Well, when you photograph someone in that situation, what happens? You either get a silhouette of them, or they are, you know, nice and clearly visible, but the outside is all blown out. Well, maybe you want one, maybe you want the other. It's a choice for you, but the camera can't make that choice for you. But let's say using full program mode, if you know how the camera meters and what's going on, then you might be able to just very quickly point the camera down at their feet, hit the exposure lock button, bring the camera up, you've locked the exposure, which is the shade side of them, click, take the picture. You don't have to think about those settings, but once you understand them, they will give you a massively creative edge in your photography. And that is precisely what my masterclass in photography course is all about. There's a link in the description below. Please go and get yourself on it. As I just said, it's 55 quid. You'll spend more than that on a lens you don't even need, and it will make a difference for you. And it will clear all that fog. Yes, I know there's tons of awesome free stuff out here on YouTube. The only problem with that is, are you digesting that information in the correct sequence, in the right order? Has someone set you some things to go and do to practice what you've just learned? That is the value of doing a course which has been laid out in a particular way, so that you get the information fed to you in such a way that it makes sense. But no, there is no problem in using auto at all. Sometimes it's completely brilliant and cameras are getting better and better. But when you know what's going on in the camera, it gives you a creative edge, so you can make the pictures look far more the way you want them to. Next question was from Marilyn. This is a good one. How do you get motivated to get out there when you just aren't confident or feel like you are that creative? Now, there was another question, very similar one, from Denise Savage, which was, what helps you get the creative juices going when the slump hits? You don't feel like getting out there. Are there particular ways you work with the slump? Excuse me, I'm going to have a sip of ginger tea. I've got sliced up root ginger in a cup of hot water. It's blooming lovely. I guess there's two answers. So there's times, if you're working as a professional photographer, you'll be given commissions or get commissions which just don't light your fire. I once spent 3 days in the corner of a great big industrial unit photographing electrical connectors. That's not really my thing, but you know, they were a lovely company, nice people, and you know, hey, that was paying the bills. But you know, did I feel like photographing electrical connectors? No, because it really was a case of, you know, drawing a little template out and making a little thing so everything was exactly the same and at the same angle in the same position, and then just putting one in and going, click, flashes, take it out, put the next one in, line it up, click, flashes, take it out, next one. 3 days of that. It wasn't fun. That's just a question of, I guess, sucking it up and just doing it anyway. Now, if it's about you going out because for the joy, for the love of taking pictures, for creating an image, what are we really chasing in that moment? I don't know about you, but I am chasing the feeling of yes. You know, when you just look at the screen, you just think, yes, that worked. I did that. Can anyone relate to what I just said? Just put a Y in the comments if you know that feeling, that moment when you've been looking at something and you've struggled a little bit, had to work and it hasn't quite come together, and then all of a sudden, boom, and you look at the back of the camera and you think, yeah, nailed it. And you just want to show people that picture. Doesn't it? Exactly, look at all those yeses. Look how many people have experienced that. So what I would say to you guys, Denise and Marilyn, is how much do you want that feeling? Ask yourself that question. If you're thinking, yeah, it's quite a nice morning, I could go for a walk, but no, I'm not feeling that creative. Ask yourself, what's that feeling like? Go and look at one of those pictures that you've got, one of those pictures that triggered that feeling, and remember that feeling. And it will probably get you moving to do it. The other way, of course, is to just do it anyway. Just do it. You know, I don't feel like it. Well, so what? Feelings for sheep and cattle, you know. Do you want to do it or not? Because here's the other thing. If you watch my most recent YouTube video, I talked myself out of going out at the time I said I would. I don't know if you've seen it, but I looked outside. I wanted a few clouds in the sky so that we get some colour at a sunrise. I'd got up early and looked outside, but I didn't really feel like going out. I wasn't in the mood. And when I looked outside at the sky and saw stars, I thought, oh, there's no clouds, there's no point. I talked myself out of it. Now, if you've seen the video, you would have seen that just as I got out the road, the oil light came on my motorbike and I stopped and I'm fiddling with my bike and there's this wonderful sky and it's all beautiful, you know. I totally sabotaged myself, and we all do it from time to time. So go and look at a picture where you did get that yes feeling and reacquaint yourself with that feeling, and then ask yourself, do I want that feeling again? Right, okay, so this might not be much fun, the first leaving the door and carrying the bag and getting in the car or whatever it may be. But I bet you once you're out there, you will start to feel great. And you'll feel good because you didn't talk yourself out of it. And then you will probably be inspired and get some great shots. Hopefully that helped. AD Coop asked, my question would be, when planning a shoot, what would your method be? After arriving at the scene, do you first assess the light, or would you rather scout a likely composition and then wait for light conditions? Do you always have a preconceived idea of what it is you're wanting to achieve? Great question, AD. It depends on the shoot. If, again, you're doing it, you know, as a job, if someone's paying you to do something, then it's about getting inside their head, finding out what it is that they want. And then when you understand that, you can then kind of do some research to make that happen. For example, I love shooting weddings, even though I don't do many these days. But I invest a huge amount of time talking to the couple, finding out who they are, what they like, the sort of things they like. I don't just mean photographs. You know, just get into general conversation, finding out what makes them laugh, what doesn't, and all that stuff. So I've got a feeling for who they are and what they like, and then I can plan things around it, such as what's the location like, where are interesting things, how can I make this work for them. The photo connect, as I was talking about, what do the company want? If it's more a question of you're going somewhere, and I suspect it is, such as you're thinking, right, I'm off up to the Lake District this weekend, what shall I do? Do I drive around in a random fashion or plan something? Yes, do as much research as you can. Google Maps, Google Earth is a really useful tool because you can, you know which direction the light's coming from. You can zoom in. Go and look at Google Images. Start searching, let's say the Lake District, let's say you can go and put in Wastwater and look at pictures of it and look at what other people have done. Combine that with something like, you know, Google Maps or Google Earth, and you can start to figure out where that might have been. Look at the weather, see what time of day the sun's going to rise, when it's going to set, are we going to have clouds or not, because then you can start to work your way through that. So that, I would say, is the pre-shoot planning side of things. If it's a portrait, where are you going to go, what are you going to do? If you want to do something cool and trendy, are you going to go and look for some graffiti in the city, that sort of thing. If it's more to do with, as I was saying, a landscape thing, then that's the first part of the research. The next part is when you are on location is asking yourself 7 questions. How do I want this picture to look? What composition will achieve that? What focal length will help that composition work? You know, how much sharpness do I want? How much depth of field? Do I want a blurry background or do I want sharpness throughout? How bright or dark do I want it? My exposure. Those are part of what I call the 7 building blocks of photography. Again, you go to my website and have a look, because I've got a course all about this thinking process. The questions to ask yourself and how to go through it. By the way, if you haven't done masterclass, if you're not 100% comfortable with your camera, then don't go to the 7 blocks yet, because we don't talk about the camera at all. We talk all about you and how you think, because you are nearly always overlooked in favour of some piece of kit or a gadget or piece of technology. So yes, do as much research as you can before you go. Stuart Anthony. This is a great question, and this came up a lot this year at the International Photography Festival at Exposure with, you know, a lot of big named photographers. Stuart Anthony asked, how do you feel about better and better processing software and artificial intelligence getting used a lot more in photography these days? You know, we can go from a simple sky replacement and even photorealistic images being generated from just a few typed words on a keyboard. Do I like these new tools, or are they maybe worrying? It's a really deep question, that one. I don't know how you guys feel, and I'm going to throw it out to you. I noticed, guys, you're putting a few questions in the chat there. Please hang on to your questions until, because I don't want to miss any for you. Yeah, I was asking about AI, and amongst all the, you know, the photojournalists and people I was talking to at Exposure about this, we are approaching a time when an editor might say, I want a photograph of refugees crossing the border with Ukraine at Medica. We want them coming into Poland. We want it to be shot at sunset so we can clearly see there is a queue following them down the path. Boom. They haven't got to send a photographer there anymore. They haven't got to use a press agency. We are approaching a time when this is going to become possible. Is it scary? Yes, from the point of view of making a living, very much so. Photography as a profession has become harder and harder to make a living from, but I don't want to go down that path too far at the moment, because there are a couple of questions coming up to which it's pertinent. It is, however, just a thing. Now, it is having an impact professionally, but how does that impact that great feeling we were talking about just now? Because, you know, for the most part, I think you guys are hobbyist photographers, and that's great. Because here's the thing, right? When I stopped being a hobbyist photographer and went professional, I lost a hobby, right? It's not my hobby. I went motorcycling with a guy on Lanzarote one day who is, you know, one of my clients. He was horrified when I showed up without a camera. He said, we've got a day off, you haven't brought a camera. I goes, no, exactly, I've got a day off, I'm not bringing my camera. I don't know, that might sound weird, but it's true. So, as long as why do you take the picture? I think we established that most of us do it because we want a creative outlet, because we want to feel great when we know we've just bagged a good one and we can look at it and think, yeah, I did that. Oh, that's good. It's nice to feel good about yourself. It's not about being big-headed or arrogant and having an ego rub. It's about being creative. It's the joy of creating something. So yes, these new tools are kind of worrying from a professional perspective, but we can't avoid them. They're here. As Mr. Musk said, the genie is out of the bottle. But then, you know, let's face it, we've had many genies over the last sort of, 5 decades have come out of bottles, and we've learnt to live with them, to move, to adapt, to improvise. For example, now I'm writing this book, as many of you know, I am very, very dyslexic. It burns a huge amount of my brain power to figure out the order of the words and the letters when I'm typing the words out. And very often I'm so busy thinking about that, I've forgotten the flow of the words I wanted to use. Now, in the past, I would have probably spent an hour or two sometimes working on a paragraph to get it to work. Maybe phone a friend of mine who is a writer and have a conversation, you know, with two friends, have conversations with them. You know, it might burn a huge amount of time for me to get what I want to say into a succinct and readable format. I have been using ChatGPT as an experiment to see how it works as an editor. So I will put something in there and go, please rewrite this, make it more succinct, or make it more humorous. And then astonishingly, it comes back with something absolutely, you know, amazing. Now, it's usually way too flowery and it isn't necessarily my voice, but what it has done is give me something in a few moments that might take Neil and I, or Alex and I, quite a bit of time to discuss, and then I can take what it's created and go, right, that's not my voice and I didn't mean it quite like that, but I like the flow that you've created here, and then I can reword it into my own thing. So I'd say that's one example of using an interesting tool. I'm going to have a quick glance at your comments here. Guys, please hold on to those questions till the end. If you've written one in the chat, just copy paste it onto a bit of paper or somewhere, because I will miss them. We're doing the list of pre-sent questions first. AI can now generate whole images. It can indeed, and it will only get better. Let's face it, ChatGPT was launched into the world you know, to learn. That's why it's been free for all this time. It's put it out there so that it can talk to people and learn. And it is an extraordinary thing. A friend of mine was asking it about various different forms of solid fuel to be burnt in a log burner. You know, which is the most environmentally friendly for the amount of heat that it will produce. And he got into quite an intellectual discussion with ChatGPT, and at one point ChatGPT said, and also of course it uses a lot less electricity. Ian responded by going, electricity question mark, we're talking about a wood burner. Get this, ChatGPT came back and said, you're right, I made a mistake there, I'll look into this, thank you for pointing it out. We are on the brink of creating the next evolution of humanity here, I believe. Anyway, good. Not too many questions. By all means, you know, what do you think about ChatGPT? I'd be interested. Just, you know, or AI, just pop it in there. Right, next question. That was a great question, Stuart. Elizabeth Lloyd, another good question. Elizabeth Lloyd asked, I love macro and landscape, poles apart, but how do I pinpoint my style? Good question. So what Elizabeth's saying is she loves two different genres of photography, which are very, very different. So how does she pinpoint her style? The thing is, Elizabeth, it doesn't matter what genre of photography you like to shoot. Landscape, macro, street, whatever it may be. I like shooting all sorts. If I think it'll make a nice picture, I'll enjoy taking it, and I don't really care what it is. But as for the style part of your question, I believe I'm going to answer this correctly. It's not like you create a style. You photograph things in the way that you like. You portray them the way that excites you, the way you think they look most interesting or beautiful or moving or inspiring. And what comes out is your style. It's not something you choose. If you're here, Elizabeth, just tell me if I've got that right for you. I'm just going to keep an eye on the chat for a moment. You're welcome, Troy. Thank you. Just in case you're here, Elizabeth, because I just want to know if I'm answering your question correctly. But yeah, pinpointing your style. Our style is what we do. You give... And I do this on my workshops quite a lot. We quite often play a game. It's called Photo Twister, where I get everyone on the workshop to stand in a confined sort of a space with exactly the same scene. And they're not allowed off that space, but they're told to see how many pictures they can create in the next 5 minutes, but they're not allowed off that space. Now, they've all got the same space to shoot from. They've all got the same things to look at, but everyone comes up with something completely different. And that is everybody's individual style, which is why we play Photo Twister on a lot of workshops. Yeah, interesting. Soren said it is ChatGPT. Yes, it's fabulous. Elizabeth, did I answer your question correctly? You're here. Tony Duke says, I remember doing this with you in a cafe on one of your workshops. Yeah, rock and roll, Tony. It was fun. I got your question coming up next as well. Brilliant. Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm glad I answered it correctly. Michelle asked, do I consider self-taught, in inverted commas, photographers as professionals versus formally taught photographers? I am a self-taught photographer. So absolutely, yeah, they rock. They're much better. Yeah, self-taught photographers as professionals. There is only one difference between a hobbyist photographer and a professional photographer, and that is the professional one charges people money for it, but it doesn't mean they're necessarily any good at being a photographer. There are many people in our photo group who produce stunning work that some professional photographers I have met couldn't get close to. Really, it means nothing. Now, the qualification side of things, personally, I am absolutely not a fan of qualifications, because I have had so many degree students come and work with me or do work experience with me, and they have no clue what they're doing. And my heart bleeds for these kids who have spent all this money and accrued all this debt to go to university to be taught how to fulfill a set of assessment criteria so that they can get a degree. They haven't been taught how to think for themselves, how to create for themselves. They've been taught how to write a paper that will give them a qualification, and then they're thrown into the world not knowing which way is up or down, and with a massive debt to pay off. So in the area of creative things, I am not a fan necessarily of the qualification. And where you're talking about professional, I think you'll find that if you approach a client or a customer, they are far more interested in what you can do for them and how easily they can work with you. Are you a likable person? Are you easy to get on with, easy to work with? Are you doing your very best to fulfill what they want? They're going to be much more interested in that than whether you can go, oh, by the way, I've got a degree. Funny enough, I'm on the lookout at the moment for someone who can help me out with a bit of filming, and I have decided that I have so often looked for someone at college or uni doing a degree in filmmaking, and I've so often been disappointed. What I'm looking for at the moment is actually someone like probably many of you guys, someone who's a hobbyist photographer. They understand composition. They haven't had a lecturer filling their head with assessment criteria, and they will just pay attention and have a go at something I asked them to do. So I hope you found that one useful. But yeah, absolutely. I taught myself photography. I came back from Africa having decided to become a photographer, and that's part of that journey I was talking about. If you'd like me to do that, let's do that question now. If you'd like me to do a little live stream with a Q&A on the end about how I became a professional photographer, just type a yes, please, into the chat now. If I get a little stream of yeses and y's, then I'll set that up. I will do it. Let's just do that now. Please hit me up. Would you like me to do a live stream? How did I actually break into professional photography? Awesome! Look at that, I've given myself a job to do. Wow, thank you guys, absolutely. Yeah, photographers are photographers. The only difference with the word professional means that some charge money for it, but I know many hobbyist photographers who are way better. So I'm not going to tell you my journey or how I taught myself to be a professional photographer. We'll save that one for later. Tanwir Haider, great question. How to see light in full capitals with a question mark. It seems like a ridiculous question, but please reply. I find it quite difficult to see light from a photography point of view. You are not alone. Has anyone else experienced that? Is there anyone else here thinking light is still a bit of a puzzle and a mystery to me? Please just write light in the chat so I don't confuse you with with a question about my journey. Light is probably one of the most difficult things for people to get their heads around. I struggled with it so much for so long because here's the thing. Light is invisible. It's weird stuff. So, for example, if I get my phone here with a little torch and put my hand let's see if this will work. Here we go. Put my hand there. You can see the light source and you can see the light landing on the subject, my hand, but you cannot see the journey between the phone and the hand. That light is invisible. It is weird stuff, light. Now that makes it difficult, but there is a really simple way to visualize light, and that's to imagine that it's water. And I've got a couple of videos on YouTube about this. It's a little exercise you can do. If you imagine light was water, so if it's coming out of a garden thing, you're using the jet, that's like light from the sun. It's going to be hard, and it's all going to be on one side of someone's face if you hit them with it, and the other side will be dry, so that side will be really bright and that side will be really dark. If you're using a sprinkler, it's going to be much softer. If you bounce it off a wall, you're going to get fine misty spray that'll reach around, and still that side will be darker than this, but it'll be a much softer transition. Understanding how light works does take a bit of doing, and it is something we go into in great depth in my online masterclass in photography, Tanweer. So there is a link in the description below. Please go and have a look. Go and have a look at it, because we can go in depth with that, and it isn't going to cost you a fortune. And I think if you're asking that question, it will probably help clear up a lot of other mysteries for you along the way. But there isn't a quick and simple answer as to how to see light, but I find imagining it to be liquid, how would water behave in this situation? It will help. Like I said earlier, there's a bit of information either side of that statement for it to totally make sense. That's interesting, Joe Blue. We don't even know what light is technically. Is it a particle or a wave? Yes, I'd forgotten about that argument. Interesting. Thank you, Rain. Hello, Swissgraf in Chile. Right, stop being distracted, Browne. I'm digressing. So the next question is from our friend Tony Duke, who played Photo Twister with me and a bunch of others. Tony was saying, what would I say is the best way to get your photography noticed with a view to selling your work? Which kind of touches on what I'm going to do later. All I can say, Tony, is it depends what you mean by selling your work. If you're able to explain that quickly in the chat, I will keep half an eye down there for you. So selling your work. Many photographers want to go out and just take pictures of stuff they like and then hopefully sell it. You're highly unlikely to make any money from doing that. You're highly unlikely able to do that. Guys, there's questions coming up in this chat. Please hold them until we do the final piece. These questions were sent in earlier. I'm doing them first. Please hold them because I might miss them. Let's say a picture of a fishing boat in a shop. Okay, Tony, got you. So what you're saying is the stuff you like to shoot. You like to go out, you've gone to a little harbour, you've got a lovely picture of a fishing boat, and you would like to sell that photograph in a shop. This also depends on scale. So there's nothing to stop you approaching the shop owner if you think it's an appropriate thing. Maybe they're a craft shop or I don't know, the local tourist information or something like that. And just saying, hey, look, I've got a bunch of really beautiful pictures of the area. Would you be up for allowing me to sell them in your shop, and you take a commission? Then it's up to you then to get them printed and framed and all that kind of stuff and put them up there. Then you can choose, do I want people to pre-order or do I want them to buy the one that's on display? Which means you've got to keep a constant flow going. If they see the picture and go, I want one of those, I'm going to order one, then you haven't got to do that, but the chances are they think I'll do it when I get home, and then they'll never do it. Selling your photographs, as in the ones you like, is not necessarily an easy thing to do. Of course, there are platforms like Etsy's, Snap, which I am a huge advocate of, and some of you guys may be there. They're still having some major problems from the complete screw up the initial developer team made of the website. Tom has just done a hackathon at Bournemouth University and got some really bright new minds to start creating his own developer team, so this whole process can be sped up. But you know, so for example, as the online shops become sorted out, and they're not at the moment, it's still being worked on, it's frustrating for everybody, you will be able to sell your photography worldwide because they will be printed in the country of the buyer, as opposed to being printed here in the UK and then shipped. He's now working with a world-class professional printing company who will print and ship from the country from where the customer is, which makes the whole thing way more seamless. So that's something to keep your eye on, Tony. But Etsy's, things like that. Then you've got stock photography, but you're not selling what you like there. If you want to work in stock photography, selling your images, you need to do research, find out what is topical, what's in the news, what do the publishers want at the moment. And also, of course, I think that area of photography is going to start to die off because they're not going to buy stock photography. And these days, even if they do, what are you talking about? Maybe £1? You know, go to iStock Photo, you can get a picture maybe between £1 and £10, something like that. Well, they're going to take 75% of that money. So you've got to do an awful lot of work to get very little, because also you've got to keyword and tag them. I would say the most fulfilling way is, if you're talking about it, is the first way. You shoot pictures you like, go to an area, go and have a weekend away somewhere great, check the weather, see what's going on, find out the interesting places, go and take pictures of it, get yourself a few really nice pictures, and while you're there, go and have a talk to the tourist information and some of the craft shops and stuff like that, see if they'd be interested in selling your pictures. Hope that helped. Okay, we're still getting loads of questions. Mark Bowen and others, please hold your question until we do those questions at the end. I'm doing the pre-sent questions first. I will not be able to scroll back through this lot to answer you. So hold it and put it in at the end. Right, Graham Havel. I've been shooting photography as a hobby for about 7 years now, from matches, I guess you mean sports matches, to parties for friends. I'm now getting requests for more and more events. Now here's the key, but I never think I'm quite good enough, always doubting myself. Does anyone else relate to that feeling? Really, just go me in the chat if you do, because you're not alone. Graham's, did you, me, ever suffer from this at the start of my photographic journey, and how do you overcome this? Yes, I did suffer from it at the start of my journey, and yes, I still do suffer from it. Never mind gold awards from exposure, stuff like that. Yeah, there are times when, okay, I've got many years of experience. There are times when I can just look a client in the eye and go, yeah, I can nail this for you, you're going to love it, because I'm confident I can. There's other times when I'm thinking, this could be tricky, not sure about this, where do I go with this? So how do you overcome this? I think it's what we were talking about earlier. This book, which I'm working on, it's about making choices and knowing there's going to be a cost attached. So if someone asks you to photograph a party or an event and you think, yeah, I really want to do it, well, one of those costs in doing it is going to be stepping outside the comfort zone, moving into scary land and doing it anyway. Now, so long as you're completely authentic and you say to that person, okay, look, this isn't something I've done before, but I'm kind of interested and I do enjoy doing it, you can then figure what it's worth financially. It might just be saying, cover my costs and I'll do it because I want to get the experience. They might say no, I don't know. Or you can set a price, or you can do it for nothing because you want the experience. You've got to ask yourself, what is the value to you? So if the value to you is to go and have a go at something you're a bit afraid to do, because when you've done it, it will give you more confidence, in which case your payment is the growth in confidence. Or do you want some money for it, or whatever it may be? The key is just to go, how much do I want to do this? The cost is going to be feeling uncomfortable. So do I really want to do this? And if you do, then you just got to pay the price and be uncomfortable. But here's the thing. All the very best journeys in life, in my experience, begin in scary land. They begin in that place where you think, oh, I really shouldn't have done that. Was this a good idea? I want to go home. Why did I do it? I am, at some point, going to be interviewing a lady called Elspeth Beard, who was, she was the first British woman to ride a motorcycle around the world back in, I think it was 1986. I'm going to be talking to her about how she chose what to photograph, because remember, she had rolls of film and she only had a limited number of rolls of film. How do you choose what to photograph? You know, right, okay, I got 36 exposures to do 3 months in India. How do you choose what to photograph? This is something, of course, which we don't have to think about these days, but I remember the days when we did. I spent 8 months hitchhiking through Africa, and I had to think about what to photograph because I had so many rolls of 36 in my backpack. And of course, every click cost money. So yeah, how do you get the confidence? You've just got to go and do it. Because each time you step over outside your comfort zone, each little place, each little step into scary, and then you do it and you think, oh, I survived that. Oh, actually, it was quite good fun. Then you take another little step into scary. I'm feeling out of my comfort zone writing this book at the moment. I'm dyslexic. I'm not an author. It's really slow going. It burns a lot of processor power. How long is this going to take? It's a big interference with other things I want to do as well. But I do want to tell the story. So, you know, maybe people are reading and go, that's crap. But hey, another little story for you on confidence. This YouTube channel began out of a complete car crash when the subscription photography training business I created with my then partner totally collapsed. I owed money to the bank. I had to get some bank repayments. There were a few little sample videos on YouTube, and the ads on those were generating, I don't know, £1 or £2 a week, something like that. So a friend of mine worked out if we put all our content onto YouTube, maybe that would cover the bank repayments. And that's how this YouTube channel really got started. I was terrified to do it because back then, we talked about weight, I was really massively overweight. I had probably 8-9 inches more on my waistline than now. The reason I was overweight is because I was deeply unhappy and had lost all my confidence. I was good at hiding it. I thought people would troll me and tell me that I'm an idiot and that I don't know what I'm talking about and who are you to tell us how to do this? But they didn't. Much to my surprise, a bunch of wonderful, beautiful, incredible strangers who I'd never met said really nice things, and that I had explained stuff that they'd spent years struggling with in a 3-minute video, and that gave me back my confidence. But trust me, I was terrified to put things on YouTube. Now look at us, big mouth Browne. I hope that helped, Graham. Sam Gabor has asked, Sam Gabor, I don't know that this is going to be much use to you. For a Nikon Z camera, which lens upgrade should I go for? A 24-120 or a 24-200? Sam Gabor, I cannot really answer that question for 2 reasons. One is I have only just briefly touched a Nikon Z camera, even though I would like to get one myself. I've never used those lenses. All I can say to you is, if you don't have the longer focal range covered, then go for the longer one. So if you've got if you don't have any other lenses, I don't know what other lenses you've got. If you've already got lenses which cover from 24 to 200 millimeters, my question to you is, why are you buying another lens anyway? Unless it gives you something like a super fast autofocus or something, you know, whiz bang like that. I don't know. I've never used them. But the question to you is, why are you buying it? Which focal length do you not have? And then buy that one. But if you're already covered with those, my question to you is, buy either. But why are you buying it in the first place? Sorry, I couldn't be more help there, my friend. Seen some lovely comments coming in here, guys. I'm not going to stop to read them all now, but thank you. That's very kind. David, similar question actually. David was saying, if you only had £500 to buy a camera, lens and software, what would you get? Is there any point even trying with such a low budget? David, there is always a point in trying if you want to do something. That is the key to life. It's a difficult question because I don't know all the different cameras and things out there. You want software without a subscription. Bear in mind that there is free software out there. Is it as good as one you pay for? I can't answer. I don't know. I don't use it. All I can say is that there are some very cheap used cameras out there. I did have a look for you before we came online. I googled, had a look to see how much a Fuji X-T1 would cost you, because I know the camera and it's an old model, they're quite a way out of date. You can pick up a Fuji X-T1 for about £250–300, a used one on eBay, but you've still got to buy the lens, and it's got to be a Fuji lens, and they are a bit more expensive, and it would burn your pretty much your whole budget to buy the camera and lens. GIMP is a free piece of software. Yeah, Suja said Snapseed is brilliant for editing, and I didn't know there was a desktop version of Snapseed. If there is, then there you go. People are giving you one. So guys, if you want to suggest things here, if you're in the chat, David, I think some people are making some suggestions for you because they know answers that I don't. But here's the thing, if you want to do something, there's always a way. You could probably pick up something like a Nikon D300 and a few lenses for something like that for very little money indeed, because they're quite old cameras. But don't forget, there's a lot of people who buy their camera, they take it out at the weekend 3 or 4 times a year, then they lose interest and it ends up on eBay after having sit in a cupboard for a few years. So if you look, you will find things. There is no seek and you shall find. Okay, interesting. Mike Bartow says Nikon has a free software, and you're right, I seem to recall it does, doesn't it? Nikon Capture, I think it's called, isn't it? I haven't used it in many years. Raw Therapy. Here we go, people are putting all sorts of useful bits of information in there, but have a trawl around. And don't panic, don't think you've got to spend £1,000, because the camera doesn't take the picture, you do. I have watched a 6-year-old with a phone take more interesting, engaging, exciting pictures than a client who came to me with £5,000 worth of top Canon gear, because the 6-year-old was thinking visually, was looking at light and composition and where to stand and when's the right moment to press the button. He was using his mum's old phone. I don't know what it was, but it was a long time ago. So, you know, don't think that the camera you buy will give you a better picture. It won't. It will give you a better quality image file. But the photographs, they're your responsibility, my friend. Have a look at my free videos. I get it, you can't afford to buy a course. Okay, have a look at my free stuff. Work your way through it, because that will help you understand how to do it. Awesome, you guys are wonderful. Look at all those suggestions you're making for David. Sue Owen. If you hadn't pursued a photography in, if you hadn't pursued a photography career, what would you have done instead? Are there still things you'd like to do? Well, let's address the first part of the question. What would I do instead? Probably be a male stripper. I think I'd be good at it. What do you mean, no? I really don't know. I really don't know, Sue, and I think this is probably going to touch on, you'll probably get your question answered when I do the live stream about that photography journey, because it was a life-changing conversation in Africa which led me to become a photographer. Oh Nan, you flirt. Which led me to become a photographer. What would I do instead? I know I'd like, someone once said to me, if you could have any profession that you want, what would it be? And this was before I was a photographer, and what I said was I'd like to be a 17th century explorer. I don't know if anyone's read a book, I think it's called A Pirate of Exceptional Virtue or something like that. It's about William Dampier. Extraordinary man. The things that he did, way before Columbus and all these people we were taught in school did things. No, it was Dampier did it, and Dampier is still essential reading in some degree courses about seafaring and navigation. I think it's captainship, becoming a captain. You've still got to read Dampier. Yeah, 17th century explorer. You imagine that. Going to places that people have never seen before, meeting cultures and peoples that no one's ever heard of. That is the one for me. What was the next part of your question? Are there still things you would like to do? Yes, yes. I want someone to invent something because I don't want to get physically any older. I'm wrinkly enough as it is, but thankfully physically I'm in excellent condition. But yeah, if I live to 200, it's not going to be enough time to do all the things that I want to do, to write all the books I want to do. I want to start moving more into speaking, events as well, doing that thing recently, although I was a bit worried about doing that speaking event for the business guys. I loved it. It was so exciting and I learnt so much doing it. And I want to start pursuing that. You know, if anyone here, I'm up for at the moment doing some speaking events, not photography things, but that journey as a motivational, inspirational talk. You know, and to me, the value is practice, is learning, right? So if any of you guys think, oh yeah, I run a business group, they might quite be interested in that story, and you want to find out more, then use the contact page on the website, get in touch, because there's a good chance if you're in my area, I'll do it for nothing at the moment because I want practice. If you're outside the area, if I'm in your area, I'll see what I can do, or I might want some expenses to do it, but you know, just planting a seed. So yes, other things I want to do, yes, I want to do some speaking, I want to do more photojournalistic documentary storytelling photography. And you know, there are so many places on this wonderful world that I would still love to travel to that I don't have a hope in hell of getting to. So I hope that helps, Sue. Yes, Rick, I will share the weight loss journey. If you wish, I could do a live stream about that. There is a book coming, but it is going to be some years down the line. I'm answering questions on there. I'm sorry, I mustn't do that. Hold those thoughts, put them on at the end. Where are we? We're nearly through them. I will speed up a bit because we're coming up to an hour already. Edgard Vanegas. I'm Edgard from Nicaragua. Hello, Edgard. I do wedding photography, use Sony A6300. Do I think it's necessary to buy a full frame camera or improve the lenses? I would have a question for you, Edgard, and I don't know if you're here. My question to you is, are you happy with the photographs you've got? Because if you are, no. Now, when I say are you happy with them, there's of course the two sides of this. There's your skill, which I can't affect in any way, and buying a better camera will not affect your skill, your ability to put people at their ease, to choose the right moment, to be in the right place at the right time when the action's happening, to use light and composition and all that good stuff without even thinking about it, because when you're at a wedding you haven't got time to think about it. You're busy running around looking after people and having fun. So yeah, so there's that part. As for the part of your question about full frame camera, why do you want a full frame camera? It's not going to improve your pictures. I've got a full frame Nikon. It's been away in a bag. I've got a full frame Nikon, but I hardly ever use it. I mostly use my crop sensor Fuji for everything. It's not really going to make a great deal of difference. It really isn't. If anything needs, if you're not happy with your pictures, the thing that you're going to need to upgrade is probably your skill level, not your camera. Now, if you need some more lenses, I would say if you've got a range sort of 10mm out to about 200-ish, that's going to help, because it's going to help you be creative. When you want to shoot some long shots with really soft, blurry backgrounds, you can get the long lens out and go out and with those shots in mind and look for them and shoot them. If on the other hand you want to get intimate, fun, part of the group shots, then you take that lens off, you stick the wide angle one on, and then you get stuck right in up close with the wide angle and you get a different look and a feel to the pictures. So the question is, what do you want to achieve? So I'm sorry I can't give you a clear answer, but I hope the questions I've given you will help you understand. So Anand Pedakotla, my question to you is about condensation. I live in Ontario, Canada. and we have glorious wintry weather for at least 5 months. I have read online about using a Ziploc bag and putting your camera and lens in it before heading inside to allow it to warm up. And so the condensation on the outside of the bag, not the camera. How long should you leave that camera? And what can I do if I'm driving to several locations in one trip and need to bring the camera in and out constantly? Let's address the first part. Yeah, put your camera in a plastic bag is a brilliant way of doing this. The other thing to remember is that your camera is really only in danger when you're going from cold to warm. Going from warm to cold isn't the problem. It's going from cold to warm. When you've got a nice warm camera and you go outside into the cold dry air, nothing's going to happen. The camera's just going to get cold, but you're not going to get condensation. It's when you've been outside in the cold and you get into a warm car and put the heater on and your clothes are drying out, and that is when you get a problem. So that, always put your camera into the Ziploc bag before you get in the car. I have made this mistake myself and gone, oh, I left the bag in the car, oh, I'll go in and get it, and I took the camera with me. Idiot. Browne, idiot. Make sure you've got the Ziploc bag in your pocket, or if you need to get into the car to get the Ziploc bag because you forgot it, leave the camera outside the car when you open the door. Don't take it with you. Also, I would say it's important to keep the bag with you so the bag is cold with the camera. So if you're driving and you need to be going in and out, in and out, in and out, well, it's fine. It's not a problem. When you come back to the car, take the bag out your pocket, pop your camera into the bag, squeeze the air out, just hold it closed. And what I would do if I were you and you're really worried about it, just put the camera in the boot of the car. Or if you're in America, or you're in Canada, aren't you? The trunk of the car. So it's not going to warm up as much. It's already cold. Just put it in the trunk, leave it in the back, where the heater won't reach it. But honestly, it's completely safe. That's all you need to do. Ziploc bag, zip it up. If you're going to go into the warm, zip it up. How long does it take to warm up? Don't know. Depends how big your camera is, depends how warm the room is, and all sorts of things like that. I'd give it an hour or two anyway, just to be on the safe side. Certainly before you take a lens off. That is the key one. Do not remove the lens. If you get condensation on the outside of the camera, it's not usually so bad because most cameras are weatherproof these days. But do not remove the lens. Okay. By the way, this works in the other direction. For those of you that are in the tropics, it's the other way around. Remember, your room's probably got air conditioning going on. The air is cold and dry, and then when you step outside into the warm, boom, you've got condensation all over your camera. What I used to do on workshops, you know, in Asia, was have a Ziploc bag and put your camera in the bag in the room, so it's cold in the bag, put it out on the balcony in the warm air and just leave it there for an hour while I had breakfast. And then the camera's all nicely warmed up, take it out of the bag, no condensation on the camera. You also said you have a modest Nikon D3200 and a 35mm 1.8 prime. Get you! Nothing modest about your 1.8 prime, is there? I haven't got any prime lenses. It's fine, doesn't matter what camera you use, they're all the same. Hope that helped. We're nearly at the end of our pre-done questions. We'll get to some of yours in the chat, so hold those thoughts, guys. Ron, when taking a photograph, say a landscape, everyone tells you to stay low on your ISO. You see many people using higher than 100 ISO, low 100, using more than 100 ISO. My question is, what rule for using the ISO in daylight? Yes, I understand if it's dull, you need to up your ISO or up your speed. As a general rule, what would I do? Along with always using your histogram or not to get the light correct. I would love to know your comment. Okay, well, here's the thing. I regularly shoot at 2000 ISO. Not really a problem. Have I got? I haven't. No, I haven't. I was going to see if I could show you a picture quickly and share my screen, but it'll take too long to find it. We're late as it is. Okay, you're shooting landscape. Then if you're using a tripod and you worry about such things as ISO, then doesn't matter. You just leave the shutter open longer. You know, if the landscape's not going anywhere, you've got your camera on a nice sturdy tripod, then use 100 ISO. No problem, no worries. However, I would suggest that pretty much all cameras these days can shoot 400 or more. You won't know the difference. I really have got, I'm more documentary style, but you know, it really doesn't matter that much. It's an old story from way back when digital cameras were new. My first professional digital camera was a Nikon D1X. If you went above 400 ISO, the picture was unusable. It was just unusable, and also it was only an 8 megapixel file, but you could still blow them up. What, 16 by 12, something like that? They're fine so long as it was well exposed and sharp. Don't worry about your ISO, Ron, really. But if it is something you worry about, ask yourself why you worry about it. What are you going to do with the picture? If you're going to post it online somewhere, no one is probably going to notice it unless they get right up close and go like this and peer at the picture, which nobody does. They come back here and they enjoy it. If you are going to blow it up massively, then yeah, then worrying about a bit of grain in it is possibly an issue. If you like shooting wildlife and you're going to need to crop in because, you know, if you're photographing a bird this big, you're going to need a 4,000mm lens to fill the frame. Then yeah, you need to think about those things. You need to buy a camera that does very, very high ISO performance in that case. But for landscape, nothing's moving, fine. But I generally, even landscapes, rarely put my camera below 400 ISO. Mariana, I'm going to have a quick look over here in the chat, see what's happening. Good, 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 good. Sorry you were late. Rick! How dare you be late? That's a good idea. Mike Bartow just said, drop one of those chemical hand warmers in your bag and stick it on the lens. Yeah, you can do. Yeah, it's just, you know, don't be impatient. Just let the camera warm up. Right, next question. Oh, it is from, no it isn't. We're getting to you in a minute, Mike Bartow. You sent a question. Mariana, thank you for giving me the chance to connect to you. I love photography. It brings me so much joy and calm. That is awesome. Fantastic. I have watched YouTube classes and find them amazing. Learned so much from you. Emma must have put this one in here because I didn't. I hadn't seen it, so it must be a new one. I have a few questions, please. Would you have a cheat sheet on settings, composition, etc.? Right, no. The closest thing to a cheat sheet on settings and compositions is my online course, The 7 Building Blocks of Photography, which will teach you the thought process to connect creativity with camera settings. But unless you know what your camera settings are and do and can use them without thinking, don't go near the 7 blocks because you'll be lost. You won't know what's going on because I don't tell you how to do it. There is no cheat sheet. I am really, really sorry, Mariana. Because every photograph is different. As the light changes, you're going to have to change the settings. Do you want a sharp background or do you want a blurry background? It's a different set of settings. Do you want to freeze motion or do you want to blur it? Are you going to print it really, really big? Do you need to use a low ISO? In which case you're going to have to think about how to keep the camera steady. What light are you in? Is there a lot of light? Is there a little light? Settings are like a river, they're fluid. So how can I give you an analogy? It's like, I'm not belittling here, please don't think I'm being patronising, I'm not, because I know what it's like when we're at the beginning, we don't know, and we have to ask questions, and there is no such thing as a stupid question apart from the one that doesn't get asked. So, the question, let's say a question like, when do I put the brakes on when riding my bicycle down a hill and there's a crossroads at the bottom? Don't know, how steep is the hill? How fast are you travelling? How quickly do you want to stop at the crossroads? Or do you just want to slow down because you can see in either direction there isn't a car coming? Do you want to just stop safely according to the highway code, or do you want to come in with a broadside with style and panache? All of those questions will tell you when to put the brakes on. And it's like that with photography. It begins with, how do I want this picture to look? And then when you've had that conversation in your head and pre-visualize it, that will tell you the settings you need to use to make it look that way. Mariana, go and get my masterclass in photography. There is a link in the description. It's 100% refund guaranteed, and it will answer all of your questions. I promise you it will. Do the homework, do the exercises. I promise it will. Second question, I have a Sony a6000 35mm 1.8. I'm looking to upgrade. Could I give you my opinion? It's the same answer as I gave to the gentleman about the Nikon. I can't. I don't know Sony cameras. I know nothing about them. I'm sorry, I've never used them. I have a Sony video camera up there, which I shoot video with sometimes. There it is. But I know nothing about Sony stills cameras. What do you want to do? This is the question. Do you want to shoot stuff with a long lens, or do you want to shoot, more close-in stuff? I would suggest a focal range from about 10 to 200 millimeters. As for which lens, I can't tell you. I've no idea. I don't know the Sony system at all, I'm afraid. But the first thing to do is learn how to control the camera. There's only 5 controls on a camera you need. Most of the rest of it's BS put there by marketing people to tell you need it. It really is nonsense, most of it. There's 5 controls you need. We deep dive into them on the masterclass. Really, do yourself a favour. Get rid of a world of pain. Spend 55 quid and let me sort it out for you. The next one was, I'm looking for quality pictures and a compact camera. Again, I'm sorry, I don't sell cameras, so I really don't know the market at all. It's really hard, but I would always say if you can go to a camera shop, if you're in the UK, go to someone like London Camera Exchange. They got branches all over the country. You can pick things up and look at it and see what you like. They all take great pictures. You are very welcome. Love learning from... Oh, thank you. Oh, New York City. You're in New York City. Mariana, thank you so much. Next question was Mike Bartow. What is the best, most appropriate way to focus in very low light? Oh, that's a painfully difficult question. Depends what you're trying to photograph and how. Now, some cameras are pretty good at focusing in low light. Some cameras have a thing called an autofocus assist light. Let's have a quick look up here. What have I got? No, yes it has. Here we go. So here's my little old Fuji X-T2. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. See what I can do. Can you see where my finger is? There's a little thing, there's a little round thing just there by the tip of my finger. That is a focus assist light. I don't know if it'll work in there. I don't know. Is there a battery in it? Will it? Yeah, there you go. Can you see that little light? Come on, hang on. See that? So that little light comes on when I touch the focus button, which can light up the subject, which can then help your camera see it and focus. Now, if your subject's further away, obviously it isn't going to reach and that won't work. You could have a torch with you, shine the torch onto the subject and then focus and shoot. Now it depends what you're shooting. If you're trying to be surreptitious and photograph wildlife, deer in a glen at night in a forest, that's going to be more difficult. If you are photographing something that is a long way away, this is going to get a bit technical, beyond the infinity point of your lens, then what I would do is focus the camera on infinity. So let's say it's in very low light. I don't know if you're talking about nighttime. If you are, focus it on the edge of the moon. Use the autofocus and just focus it on the edge of the moon. Flick it onto manual focus so that the focus won't change. It's locked at infinity, and then shoot your picture and it will be in focus, because when you're beyond infinity it doesn't matter. It can be further away or closer, no matter where you focus, so long as you're beyond the infinity point. I can't go into infinity points here, I'm sorry. They're all in masterclass as well, infinity and where to focus. In fact, have a look in my YouTube, infinity and where to focus. Write that down for yourself. Mike, write that down. Infinity and where to focus, search in my YouTube videos. There is a video from masterclass. It's one of the few I've given away from masterclass, and it might help answer your question a bit, but it isn't going to say much about low light. Nan Kelly, my query is around focusing and metering. I know the various focusing and metering modes, when to use them and how to use them. My problem is, where do I focus in a landscape and where do I meter from? Can I focus on one area and meter off another? And if so, how? Very good, well written question there, Nan. Okay, let's do this in reverse. Can I focus on one area and meter off another? Absolutely you can. Where to meter from? Now this goes into which metering mode are you using? because you've got spot metering, we've got center weighted metering, matrix, evaluative, different cameras call them different things. So all I can do is tell you how I do it. Now this isn't the right way, this is just my way, because you can do this in so many ways. I never use spot metering. I hate spot metering. It is extremely accurate, but let's say I have got my spot metering on and the spot is touching something black. I'm saying to the camera, I want that black thing to be grey, and so it will completely screw up my exposure. It's another thing to think about, and that's why I don't like it and why I never ever use it. It is very accurate, but it means you've got to think carefully about where you put and meter from. So if you'd need to meter from a mid-grey tone, which is probably grass, blue sky, something like that, that is where you'd meter from if you insist on using spot metering. I use evaluative metering and treat the light meter as a guide. It's a starting point. It's usually pretty good, but I just use all over evaluative metering mode. Let the camera just give me an average for what's in my composition. But I use the histogram, because the histogram will tell me if highlights are clipping off or shadows are blocking up, and then I can just adjust the exposure as the histogram moves up and down until it's in the place where I want it. That may not agree with what the camera's light meter says I should use. But the two are not connected, Nan. So you can set your focus point. Let's say you're using single point autofocus. You can move that around the viewfinder, and so long as you're not using spot metering, then it won't meter from there. So you need to set your metering to something else. Try doing what I suggested. Stick it on evaluative. It's really good. Most of the time it just gets it right. But in those times when, say, it's snow and you know the camera's going to screw that up, we all know that, it's going to make it grey because it thinks everything in the world is grey, then you will need to adjust that exposure, make it brighter than the camera says it should be. I hope that helped, Nan. And our last of the pre-sent in questions is from Ken Woodall. I have a problem. So have I, Ken. We should sit down and have a chat about our problems. Sorry, I have got a problem. I fell out of love with photography. I wouldn't have joked if I'd known that was coming. Apologies. What the problem is I take a load of pictures. When I get them home, they don't look interesting. I think my composition is my problem. In the past, I never had a problem. It's like I've hit a mental block. Interesting question, Ken. I wonder how many people here can relate to what you have just said. Your pictures don't look interesting, but what you're saying is it wasn't a problem in the past, so something has changed. Either your ability to compose pictures has fallen off, and I don't actually believe that, because it's like once you know how to ride a bicycle, you know how to ride a bicycle. Once you know how to write your name, you know how to write your name, unless you've had a trauma, some sort of kind of trauma, a head injury, something like that. So I doubt that it's your ability to compose the picture if you were happy with them before. What I would suggest is that it's probably the second part. You said mental block. It's probably a question of you're daydreaming, you're not focusing, you're not paying attention, you're not giving yourself permission to maybe take some pictures that aren't great. You say you take thousands of pictures and they're boring and uninteresting. Are there really thousands? Or are we talking maybe 50 or 60? Because it's really easy for us to exaggerate and use language which is totally inappropriate. I say all my pictures are rubbish. They're all rubbish. Are they really all rubbish? Or are some of them rubbish, in your opinion? Maybe you're being too hard on yourself. Maybe you're being too critical. And it's good to be self-critical, because that's what has us grow and evolve and improve. But here's the thing. No one can fix that for you. If you think your composition isn't as good as it could be, then work hard on your composition. Think about your composition. What is composition? It's simply little movements of your camera, isn't it? All it is this, right? I want to put the subject near the bottom of the frame. Tilt the camera up a bit. I want the subject near the top of the frame. Tilt the camera down a bit. I want it on the left of the frame. Tilt it to the right. I want it on the right of the frame. Tilt it to the left. I want to move the horizon. I need to lower the camera. I want to raise the camera. That's all composition is. There is nothing more. You just arrange the elements of your picture by doing that with your camera. So go and practice it, play with it, and give yourself permission to not have the most amazing, perfect composition every single time. And I think you will grow. Or maybe, as you say, maybe you've just fallen out of love with photography. And that's fine. We're completely allowed to do that. How many of us have had hobbies and pastimes and interests that we fall out of love with, that we go, yeah, I used to do that, I enjoyed it, but yeah, I got bored with it, moved on, found something else to do. There's nothing wrong with that either. So I hope that has helped, and thank you all of you for sending in those questions in advance. We are going on a lot longer than I thought, but let's have a look. So those of you who saved your question, we can now throw it open. If you want to just pop your question into the chat, I will have a look at those now. I'm sorry, I'm not going to scroll back looking at questions you wrote earlier. Sorry, it will take forever. I read too slowly for that. So anyone who had a question during this live, if you want to pop it into there now, then let's see what we can come up with. I've got to be careful because it's going to move fast. Whoa, just seen two. Mark Bowen, how can people with little money get a start in photography? I'm concerned too many people are priced out of even getting started. It is a difficult question, no doubt there. The thing is, yeah, you've got to have a camera. Now, what do you mean by getting started in photography? Do you mean professional photography? Or do you just mean photography, taking pictures? You can take great pictures with a phone. The camera doesn't take the picture, you do. It's how you see, light, composition, where you stand the moment you click. Phones are brilliant for things like street photography because no one takes any notice of them. You can almost stand right up next to someone and point the phone at them and take a picture of them. They probably won't bat an eyelid, but if you do it with that, then they might turn around and notice you. There are cheap cameras and equipment out there. Now, if you're talking about professionally, that is slightly different, because if you're going to do this professionally, there is a care of duty on behalf of the photographer to deliver, you know, the goods. Now, I have walked up to a photo shoot. It was somebody's wedding, and weddings are weird things because you cannot repeat them. Screw up a commercial job like those electrical connectors, well, they're pissed off. The insurance pays out. I buy another camera, come back and do it again tomorrow, you know. But I walked into a wedding and I broke my camera. I dropped it down the stone steps, hadn't taken a single picture. But because I have two sets of equipment, it doesn't matter. It's a backup should that happen. Insurance, things like that. Yes, it is difficult. If you want to start in photography and you have no money, it's like any business startup, you would have to find funding somewhere. But if it's a question of doing it as a hobby, phones are great. You can get very cheap cameras online. You don't have to get post-processing software. You know, you can use the processing settings within the camera. So when the camera takes a RAW file and gives you a JPEG, it does some post-production. But when you know how to use the settings in the picture control settings, you can tell the camera how you want it to do that. So you don't necessarily have to buy software. I bet you could find a camera for probably, I don't know, a couple of £100. I don't know how much you've got. There was a guy in Canada, a homeless guy, who I've kind of lost touch with, who was absolutely fantastic. Oh, but he had terrible mental traumas, being a refugee, having escaped his family being murdered and slaughtered in front of his eyes. But he found a camera in a dumpster in a skip by the side of the road and started taking pictures, and now his pictures are published in magazines and things. You know, there is always a way if you want to do it. Let's have a look. What was the next one? Your pictures are coming in thick and fast. I'm not going to be able to do them all, guys. I am going to pull the plug on this in about 10 minutes. I'm sorry. Right, next one. Jane Barnes. Have you got any hints for getting sharp photos when dealing with cataracts? Difficult question, Jane, and I haven't. The only thing you can do is trust the autofocus. Autofocus is pretty good. Really experiment with your autofocus control settings, you know, which modes to use in which circumstances, and it's going to take a lot of experimentation. But about the only thing I can think that you can do is to become a master of your autofocus settings, because rather than being able to see whether it's sharp or not in the viewfinder, you may have a problem there. Yeah, I don't know a solution to that. It might be worth having a bit of a Google around if your cataracts are untreatable. Yeah, I'm sorry I can't help further. Right. Now, can we say that? Ibrahim Al-Swad. Can we say the time of digital cameras is over with the advent of smartphone camera technology? I don't know. It's as long as people want to buy cameras, they will keep making cameras. As long as people love and enjoy photography, they will keep making things to do it with. What I do suspect in the future is that with the incredible technology of the phone, someone will take that style of technology and then put it into maybe a camera body, something like this, where you can put interchangeable lenses on, great quality lenses with a great quality sensor. And then instead of us using old-fashioned analog controls such as shutters and apertures and ISOs, which we don't necessarily need with digital photography, because we just don't. It's a throwback to film cameras. But if we had a really great sensor and a really great lens built into a body with a great processor, and we could just sort of go, right, I want a shallow depth of field, that's the equivalent of choosing your aperture. I want to blur the motion, so that's the equivalent of choosing a slow shutter speed. You know, you can just like tap on the screen and do stuff and take the picture. I'm amazed that hasn't happened yet. But no, photography will still continue. Someone said, MS Belcher, would I come over to the States for a workshop? Yeah, I would love to. It's something on the to-do list. Big problem is where in the States? It's a big place, and I'll say, yeah, I'm coming to the States, everyone, and then I get a million emails going, oh, I don't live there. I have that in England. People said to me not long ago, come and do a workshop in Brighton. So I said, all right, who's up for it? Give us 20 quid to prove it, and then I'll set it up, and if we can't do it, I'll give you 20 quid back. Only 2 people did it because they didn't want to travel, and that's just in England. Yeah, I would come to the States. I'm thinking New York City to do something. I need to get a sponsor, otherwise I'm not allowed to do it legally. Graham, what made me want to become a photography tutor and not just stay he didn't say that, and not stay a photographer? It was the joy I got from light bulb moments. When some of you lovely people and others on YouTube have commented, when people have said, oh wow, I get it, I understand. It's just the most wonderful feeling to know that I've contributed to that in some small way. I can show you the water, but I can't make you drink it. I've got awesome courses and wonderful workshops that have got 5-star reviews. I've just found out a couple of days ago our Trustpilot has got 5 stars, not 4.9. It's got 5 stars and hundreds of reviews. I didn't know that was possible. I thought it would always be a bit less than 5. I didn't even know that, but I'm good at it and I love doing it. And I love light bulb moments when people leave great reviews and go, oh wow, I've learned something. But it's you guys who do the work. I tell you what to do, but if you don't do the work, what I tell you to do won't work, you know. You can tell me how to make a souffle, but if I don't do it properly, I'm not going to have a souffle, I'm going to have a mess. Right. We've come to the end of those, so let's have a look. There's a few more on here. I'm going to have to, this is going to be a bit potluck. I'm not going to be able to answer them all, so let's have a look. David Hansen has just asked, ask me anything. Where are my batteries and charger? You can't find them and hasn't been able to use his camera for a month. David, they're where you left them, mate. Just curious, but you told me in a comment recently you used the Fuji X-T2 but might need to replace it due to it getting worn out. Have you replaced it? If not, are you going to, and if so, what? Yes, sir. Daniel Schmadra. I haven't replaced it. Here it be. I haven't got around to it yet because I'm not actually shooting a great deal at the moment. Workshop season sort of begins in a couple of weeks and I'll be using the camera more. I hope to be doing more documentary stuff, but I know the book writing will get in the way a bit. No, I haven't. I have sort of narrowed it down pretty much to what I think I want. I like the Fuji system. I like the Fujis, But for me, the X-T2 autofocus is just so mind-numbingly ponderously slow when using a long lens. It's accurate, but it's just too slow. And I was starting to do a little bit of work with the guys who've been sponsoring me with motorcycle gear, biker heads, and I need a faster autofocus system. And I know people have said to me, oh, you need to put it on boost mode and this mode. It makes no difference, none at all. It just doesn't make any difference. It cannot keep up. So I'm thinking, if I want to stay with Fuji so I don't have to get new lenses, maybe an X-T3, because I played around with some of that and looked at a few reviews and had a go with one. I thought, oh, I'm quite impressed with that. Maybe an X-T4, but from what I can see, I prefer the X-T3. But that's because instead of the screen that just flips like that, the X-T3 screen comes around the side. And that, for me, is incredibly useful if I ever want to shoot video with this, because I shoot video, don't I? The other option would be a Nikon Z, probably a Z7 II, because I love the colours. I prefer the colours and the files from my Nikon to the ones in the Fuji. It's only a splitting hair difference. But I do prefer, I love the Nikon colours and I like the Nikon stuff, and I've just been told by the director of arts and photography at the University of Florida, the amazing photographer Thomas J. Thomas Lopez, that he shoots Nikon Zs. He's got 2 of them, but he said the older professional Nikon lenses, the F-mount lenses, will still have the autofocus capabilities when used with the Z adapter. So it'll be one of those 2, I expect. What else we got going on down here? Oh, Joe Blue said, here's a thing for you, Mike. What makes a good picture? Really simple answer, Joe Blue. The one that you like best. That's all connected with those questions about style. You might take a picture and love it, but a load of other people might not. I noticed that pictures that I posted in various places over time, some of the ones I like the best, no one takes any notice of. And the ones when I think, oh, I don't really know if I want to post that, it gets loads and loads of likes. So we just can't tell. A good picture is the one that you love. Yes, of course, there are things like, is it all, we know, you know, is it sloppily composed? Is there bits falling out of it? Is it soft and blurry? But even then, if you love it, it doesn't matter. My friend and colleague Bella West, who's one of my favourite photographers, has got an awesome picture of a little girl running through a cornfield. Now, she saw this happen out of the corner of her eye. She didn't have time to do anything other than turn and shoot. She didn't even put the camera to her eye. She just saw it and reacted. And this is something which you guys, we all have to learn as photographers. And she didn't think it would be of any use at all. And yeah, the settings were wrong, because it was just a little bit overexposed. She had kind of missed the top of the girl's head, and the shot was blurry because the shutter speed was too slow for a correct exposure. Nonetheless, it is an awesome picture. It's blurry, it's bright, it's this little girl in a blue dress with cornfields, and it's blurry, and you get the feeling of her running. It is a most fantastic picture. I love it. Someone else will go, it's not sharp, you cut her head off, it's overexposed. That's what makes a good picture. Where are we? We're just gone 8:30. I'm going to do 2 more questions. Oh wow, look at them all. My pleasure, Daniel. I'm glad I pronounced your last name correctly. Need to shoot for ourselves. Oh, Jane, I just saw a comment. It's like peering through a lace curtain. I'm sorry. Is there nothing they can do? It's, I guess, well, you know, you're an intelligent person. Good on you for keeping up with the photography, though. I think that's amazing. CS asked, why does film photography feel different than digital? That is a really interesting question, CS. What can I say? I can only answer for me, obviously. I think it's because you have to think. You've got to think about what you're doing. With one of these things, you just kind of like, you know, take a picture and look in the back, take a picture, and it's a throwaway thing. You can see your composition, you can see if the exposure's about right or not, you can see if it's sharp straight away. It's rather mindless, digital photography. Do I want to go back to film photography? Absolutely not. But film photography, you've got to think, you've got to pay attention, you've got to think about what you're doing, because you don't have that feedback, that information. You've got to really think. People who learn on film cameras, I think it's a great idea. A photography teacher at a college that I know told me they teach on film camera. I went, well, why do you bother doing that? You know, they're never going to use a film camera. And she said, because it makes them think. Because they think about what aperture to use, what shutter to use. They use manual film cameras to teach the college kids, because they've got to think about what they're doing, instead of thinking, I don't need to think, I don't need to bother, the machine will do it for me, which of course I'm afraid it won't. I think that's the difference. It's a feeling of fulfillment. Thank you, Najib. Thank you for coming in from Algeria. I love this. You guys are from all over the world. It's so exciting. What is the future of cameras? I heard you say we're talking digital photos using analog controls. So what will replace f-stops and apertures? We don't need them, Robert. Like I said earlier, you know, you can get an app on your phone. You just go, I want a soft background. I want you to focus here. Tap, tap. You know, with digital, you don't need apertures and things. It was a way for manufacturers to translate between what we were all used to, a focus ring and a shutter speed and an aperture, into a new paradigm of digital photography. Do I like the thought of that? Well, I kind of do, actually. If I could have a really great quality camera that I could, you know, just tell it what I want it to do quickly and easily, you know, just by tapping somewhere, I probably would, even though I hate touchscreens. Now, would that be a painful process? Of course it would, because I've got to learn something new. You know, I'm operating shutters and apertures and focusing and all that stuff without thinking. I've been doing it as a job for 30 plus years. So I'd have to learn a new way, but I think in the end it might be quite good. Najib asked, what is the biggest advice you can give us about street photography? Be aware of where you are at all times. That goes for any photography. You've got to be ready and you've got to be aware. So when you're walking around, you come out from under a dark alleyway. There's not so much light there. So you have an exposure that you set for that alleyway. When you come out into the bright street, remember you've come into a bright street. Change your exposures so you're ready. Why not use auto? Because right now the light is shining on me here. Now, whether you take a photo of me from over there, or up here, or around there, or down there, or up there, whether you do it from above or below, it's the same light. So once that exposure's set, you haven't got to think about it again. That job's done, forget it. It's all in the same light. You can point your camera anywhere in this arc, all around here. It's the same exposure, doesn't matter. But if you're on auto, and suddenly you turn that camera, and most of the shot is a whitewashed wall, the camera won't know that the light is the same, and it will see the bright whitewashed wall, and it will go, "Cool, that's too bright," and it will darken it, and it will give you the wrong exposure. That's why I'm a big exponent of manual exposure. So yeah, be aware, be ready, and think about focusing. You know, I watched, there's a great guy called Gareth Danks. Go and look him up on YouTube. Gareth Danks, D-A-N-K-S. I think he does some great little videos about street photography. I am going to be going out sometime before long with a guy called Rob Irving. He is one of the exposure photographers I met this year. He was exhibiting. He's an awesome street photographer and a lovely guy and a biker. We're going to go out and do some videos together. I'm going to go and hang out with him and do some street photography, and we're going to video this. I want to you know, talk to him as well, because I want to learn more about it as well. I hope that helped. John Robert Holland, hi mate, any updates on Elspeth Beard interview? Yeah, I mentioned it earlier actually, John, you might have missed it. Elspeth wants to come for a motorcycle ride with me because she's still got the bike she rode around the world in the 1980s, and I think it would be great trying to get dates when we are both available and the weather is going to play ball for us isn't easy. So it's still on the cards. I spoke to her the other day. I think we got a date in place for a couple of weeks' time to try again. But I can't promise. I have got to call her tomorrow about it, but it's on the cards. Any other questions? We are kind of coming to the end now, I think, guys. Sue said, do I ever think I'd be on TV presenting a photography program? Don't know, I'd be up for it. I've been on TV a couple of times doing things. I was a photography expert with Alan Titchmarsh on one of his TV programs once, a long time ago. Yeah, if somebody asked me, I'd probably be up for it, as long as it wasn't a techie thing. I don't mind talking about photography, but I'm not interested in talking about tech. Don't understand it, don't like it. Anyway, I think we have come to the end here. Yeah, I think we're good. So everybody, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. If you haven't liked this stream, please do it now, because it's going to end in a minute. It'll be too late, but you're really helping me out. Just hit that like button. Give it a like. What are we on? How many likes have we got? I'm just having a look. 115. Oh, it's not bad. Thank you. You've been great. But hit that like button now. If you would like to support photography, I was going to call it by its old name, Photo Lockdown. If you'd like to support Photo Creative, donations are always welcome, because of course it does take time to do this. Yeah, I do promote my stuff. Of course I do, because, you know, it doesn't pay the rent to just do it for nothing, does it? But nonetheless, I love talking to you. You guys are awesome. If you're watching this for the first time and you've reached the end here after a whole hour and 40 minutes, you are awesome. Come and join in the Photo Creative group. There's a link in the description below. Go and find out about it. Come and do some of our challenges. Beyond that, I wish you well. You guys rock. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.